Hello, my name is Matt Lewis. I am your instructor for Math 142, and I'm making this video today to get you started in the class, hopefully give you confidence to go ahead and begin. Now you may come away today with some questions still, and I'll just say right at the outset that there will be plenty of opportunities for you to get those questions answered by me. The main thing I want to say about this class is that, of course, it's going to be a little bit different because it's online, but it's also probably going to be different for you in terms of how you're used to taking tests in a math class and how you're used to being graded in a math class. Of course, I know some of you took Math 141 from me last quarter, and so things in terms of how I'm going to grade exams is going to be similar to that. But for those of you who haven't had me before, this will definitely be a new experience, but I think it will be a positive experience. So before I go talking about the nuts and bolts of the class, let me just first kind of give you where I'm coming from philosophically. So philosophically, the way I'm approaching this course is that, number one, when you are given a grade, that grade should actually mean something. It should actually tell you your level of proficiency on particular topics, right? So when you do a test, you shouldn't just be able to give me a number in terms of how you did, but you should also be able to articulately say to me, this topic, there's some things I still need to work on. I'm getting there on, but these topics I feel like I'm an expert in. You should be able to use that kind of language because that actually gives you power to actually do something about how you perform. And that leads into the second part, which is not only should the grades you get mean something, but it sure would be nice if there was opportunity for growth after getting feedback from me on a test. And I'll describe how that's going to work, but essentially you will have the opportunity to basically raise your level, raise your grade essentially when it comes to tests. And so I'll describe exactly how that goes. So let me begin by showing you how to get logged into the course website, and then it'll be easier for me to talk about some of the details as to how I'm going to grade, how tests are going to work once we get in there. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and go here to WAMAP. Now, if you've never used WAMAP before, it's a really simple web address, www.wamap.org, and it'll take you to this page right here. Now, for those of you who have used WAMAP in the past and used your student ID number as your username, then you can just log in with that old account and you will see my class in your old account, okay? But the key is that your username has to be your student ID number, okay? So if you had an account with your student ID number as your username in the past, then just log in with all that old information. And if you know you had one but you forgot the password, you can click forgot password and they'll get you set up with a new one. If you've never had a WAMAP account, or at least you haven't had one where this was your username, then what you're going to do is you're going to type that same student ID number into the password as well. So it'll be the same thing in both the username and the password slot. And then what's going to happen is when you hit login, WAMAP is going to immediately make you change that password. Okay. So either logging in with an old, with the old login information from another class, or logging in with your student ID in both the username and the password. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as this fake student account that I've created, and it doesn't use the student ID as the username. But I'll go ahead and log in. All right, and you can see the class right here, 2020 Spring Math 142. All right, so here's the class, and there's quite a bit here. So I'm just going to pretty much work straight down the page. I think is probably the easiest way. Now, one of the things I bet is forefront on your mind is, you know, how in the world am I going to get help if I'm struggling with a problem? So what we're going to do is we're going to take what would have been our class time and basically make those office hours for our class only every day. So I'm doing this for every one of my classes. So just taking the hour we had, and that's going to be our office hour. And it's going to be, of course, virtual. And so we're going to do this office hour over Zoom. So what I'm hoping is that on Monday, I can get pretty much all of you to log into Zoom at 8:30 a.m. so that I can kind of show you around and show you how it'll work when you have questions that you want answered from me. But I will be here every single day, 8:30 to 9:20. And the easiest way to get here is just to click on this link around 8:30. This is one of those things where it's not a requirement. I'm not going to require you to be there. You can pop in at 9 o'clock if you want. So it truly is an office hour, but I really encourage you to take advantage of it. And one thing that I think would be a good idea is just to be in the habit of logging into it every single day. And even if it's just kind of on in the background of your house and you never end up having a question that you need to ask me, then that's fine. But if you just kind of have it on in the background and you're working on stuff and another student asks a question that kind of reminds you of something that you may have had a question about a couple days prior, then you can kind of tune in for a minute and hear from that. So that would be my suggestion, is just log in every day. And even if you don't necessarily talk to me every day, you might still get a lot out of it. So again, Monday, try to log in at 8:30 so that we can kind of we can meet and I can kind of show you how that all works. All right. The next thing on the page here is the schedule. Now the schedule, this is a really important thing for you to keep an eye on every day. This is going to really keep you on track. And so if you've taken online classes before, a lot of times an online class will be structured where everything is maybe due on Sunday at midnight or Saturday at midnight or something like that. And so you don't have due dates throughout the week, but you have one big one every week. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have things due almost every day. Now there's ways that you can, you know, if you have something come up and that prevents you from getting something done on time, then, you know, my motto this quarter is I'm going to try to be as flexible as I can with students, because I know this is a challenging time for everybody. So don't hesitate to ask me, but as much as I can, I want to keep you right on track. I don't want you falling behind, because that's just so easy to do in an online environment. So the main things you see each day is, number one, I'll describe what will be happening on Zoom. So I'll say specifically what topic I will be helping out with. Then there's an on your own part. So, you know, later after your Zoom meeting that day, what is it that you should be working on in terms of assignments? So that'll be listed. And then reminders of what's actually due. Okay. So whenever I list something right here for the on your own portion, that's not going to be due that day, because I want to be able to help you with it the following day in the Zoom meeting. So you can see here, we're talking standard 2 for Tuesday's on your own part. And then in Zoom on Wednesday is when I help you with it. Okay. And then it happens to be due midnight that night. So there's always kind of a day lag between when you have the opportunity to get help on it and then when it's actually going to be due. So those are kind of the three things you'll always see. So just kind of check those boxes off every day, right? Do I need help in the Zoom meeting? What am I being asked to do on my own that night? Let me make sure I do that. And then is there anything from the day before that I hadn't quite finished yet that I need to finish before it's due at midnight? So that's kind of going to be your pattern each day. The textbook for the class, you can have a hard copy, but you can also just have a PDF version, and it's completely free. So to get that, just click on this link here, and that'll allow you to get the PDF version of the book, no charge. All right, now here's notes for the class. Now this is kind of redundant because this first set of notes here, that's the full set. That's everything you need for the entire quarter. If you have a decent printer at home, I would highly suggest printing out all of the notes. I think that's the way that you'll find things most effective for you in terms of, you know, taking notes down and getting all the information from the videos that I'll show you in a bit. But if for some reason it's more convenient for you, I did break the notes down into smaller sections, and this breaks down as basically the different parts of the class that you'll have tests over. All right, now let me just open up the full set of notes here so you can see what it's like. Now, for a moment, if you wouldn't mind just pretending with me for a second that this wasn't an online class, right? Pretend with me for a moment that everything's normal right now. So in a normal class that I conduct in this way, you're going to have two types of notes: video notes and class notes. So video notes are ones where even in a normal classroom environment, I have the students watch a video the night before and take notes on it. So here's my section 5.2 video notes. And what you do is you have these hopefully printed out, and then you turn on the 5.2 video notes video, which I'll show you in a minute, and you take notes on this paper as I'm doing the lesson. And so you'll notice, like example 1 here, it says, let us mark some frequently encountered angles on the circle below. There's nothing there, right? So the idea is there's the setup to the problem, but you actually have to write in the solutions and things like that. And so so that's what my notes are all about, and all of them have that type of flavor to them. So there's a few pages here of video notes, and this will be the very first thing you take notes on. And then we arrive at class notes. So under normal circumstances, my class notes tend to be things that I want my class to work on with each other in groups, to kind of have to problem solve on. A lot of these ones I will basically, this would be taking place in class, and I would really want students to dig deep into the material here. And so what you're going to find is, because I don't have the opportunity to put you in groups, and I don't have the opportunity to have you in class and have you kind of stop and think about some of these questions, is you'll hear me a lot in the video for the class notes say, okay, I want you to pause the video for a second and try this problem, right? So you're going to hear that a lot. I really encourage you to take that very seriously. So when I ask you to pause and actually think about a problem, like take 5 minutes to do this problem, or really get creative and try to problem solve, don't just fast forward through it and then wait for me to give you the answer. Really take some time to think about it, because that's part of the learning process. So that's my intention oftentimes with class notes. So even though it's going to be on video, try to treat it in that same manner. All right, so you take notes here, and then see, now we're back to video notes, and it just alternates, video notes, class notes. Again, for you online, you're not going to see as much of a difference between them, but like I said, try to treat those class notes differently and follow my instructions in the videos pretty carefully. All right, so there's all the notes. Here's the syllabus. I'm not going to even really go through the syllabus. The really important stuff for you to know, I think, is I'm telling you verbally right now, but the syllabus is there for you. All right, so at the beginning, I mentioned my weird grading. Okay, so let's get specific about what I mean by weird grading. So instead of me giving you a test, and for every single problem I assign you, instead of just saying, oh, this problem's worth 10 points, and then looking at what you did and saying, well, you earned 7 of those 10 points. That would be kind of the traditional way you're probably being used to be graded in a math class. The problem is, what does the 7 out of 10 mean? Does it mean you basically understood it and just made a small error? Does it mean that you actually had something important off, but maybe I was just kind of being generous with points? What does all of it mean? It's much better if when you get feedback, it actually tells you where you're at. So let's use standard 3 here as an example. So typically there's going to be 5 different levels that you can score at, okay? So not yet means, and by the way, this is solving problems involving arc length, area, linear velocity, and angular velocity. So you're going to very quickly be studying these topics. So not yet, okay? So that the student is unable to demonstrate an understanding of what the question is asking or how to find the answer. Okay, so basically you left it blank, or what you did write down really didn't have anything to do with the problem itself. Number 1, novice, and I just put those 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up here just because it's nice shorthand for me, but really don't try to turn this into some sort of a numerical scoring, okay? This is just my way of indicating this level, which is novice. It says the student shows some understanding of what is involved in the problem, but may not have all the formulas correct or has made serious conceptual mistakes. So maybe I've seen a couple of the right ideas happening, but it hasn't really formulated into anything that's going to really help you solve the problem. All right. At the developing level, the student may use the appropriate formula, but has forgotten to convert to radians, okay? And at this point, that might be kind of like, what is he even talking about? But that'll make sense once you study the topic. Or the student has accurately used the appropriate formula, but has not included units in the answer or has not successfully converted to the correct units. So I'm being very specific about what it means for you to be developing on this topic. Number 3, proficient, the student is able to accurately work through appropriate formulas to solve 1 or 2-step problems covered in the standard. Appropriate units are included in the answer. So what this means is you can do all the bread and butter questions, right? You can do all the ones that, notice I said 1 or 2-step problems, okay? So all the bread and butter stuff, you're solid on. Now, to be an expert, it says the student is able to solve more complex problems involving these topics. In particular, the student understands when either angle or velocity conversions are necessary and applies them appropriately to problems that involve many steps, right? Many steps. So you can knock anything out of the park that I give you. So you're going to score at these levels here, okay? For each topic, or the phrase I use for them is standard, okay? So for every standard, you get a score. And so when I give you your first test is going to be over standards 1 through 5. When I give that back to you, you're not going to have a score at the top of your test. You're going to have 5 different levels for the 5 different standards, right? So I might say you're proficient in number 1, you're an expert in number 2, and so on. So that's how the grading is going to take place, okay? Now you're already probably wondering, how in the world does that get converted to a letter grade at the end of the quarter? I will get to that, but not quite yet. All right. Now, this blank here, if I click on it, has a list of the standards and just the description of each one, and it has some problems right here. These problems are book problems, and they are only problems that you need to do if you want to try to raise your grade at the end. And so a little bit later when I talk about reassessing, these are the book problems that I'll be referring to that you have to do in order to qualify to reassess. And so I'll more on that later, but I don't want to get too far into it now. All right, so sorry, let me just look down for a second, make sure I'm on track with all the things I needed to tell you. Yeah, all right, so now let me show you what kind of your typical assignments look like. So I'm going to open up chapter 5 here. So earlier you saw me refer to standard 1 video notes. That was the very beginning of your notes. So here, if I click on this, is where I'm going to both find the video and also find questions to go along with it. Okay, so just to really show you side by side, I'm going to open up one moment while I get all this set. So here's the set of notes, right, that I suggested you print out if you can. And then here are here's my first video. So if I press play on this, I'm going to mute it so I can talk over it. But you notice that this matches up perfectly with my video notes, right? And this part matches up with this part of my video notes. So I'm taking notes on here, I'm explaining them. You can take whatever notes you think are appropriate, right? Here's the example 1 I was talking about. So the idea is that you are taking the notes right along with me. This is literally your lecture, like me writing on the board and then you taking the notes down here for yourself. Now, after watching that video, there's going to be questions for you to answer, okay? Now, let me just show you in this particular one, it wants us to identify certain angles, okay? So I'm going to put 0, 30, and 40, all right? And I'm going to press submit. Okay, now what you'll notice is that most of them I got wrong because I didn't answer most of them. I got the first 2 correct, and then I got C wrong, and then all the rest were incorrect. So I've got a fraction of the points here. So anytime you get them wrong, you can always take another stab at it one time. But then let's say I don't bother to go further than that. So I hit submit again. I notice I got 3 more right, and my overall score is 0.3 out of 1. So now I'm even better. But notice that my submit button is gone now, and it shows me all the answers. Okay, so basically on any given question, you get only 2 tries. However, if you miss it after those 2 tries, it'll show you the answers and then give you an opportunity to try a similar question. So I hit try similar question, and then I redo the problem and hopefully get all the points. And if I get all the points there, in fact, let me just very quickly do it here so you can see exactly how this works. Okay, what's next here? Okay, and I'll press submit. I'm not going to finish the whole thing, but now it's even higher, 0.5 out of 1. There's never any penalty for taking multiple attempts. So as soon as I bother to get all of them right, it'll say 1 out of 1 there. And so that's always, of course, what you're shooting for. When I click to the next problem, notice that the video is gone. But if you need to go back and see the video again, you just click on show question information and the video comes back. Now what'll happen sometimes is when you watch this first video, it might not make it quite all the way through your video notes. So if I stop it right here, and I scroll through here, that only takes me down to example 2 of the video notes, and there's more to go. So if the video ever stops there, don't panic. Just understand that the rest of the video is going to pick up later. So it wanted me to stop at this point, do a couple of questions, and then once I hit question 3, the next part of the video note shows up. So then I play that, fill this part in, and then answer the next couple of questions. So just understand that that'll happen sometimes. Videos will pop up in the middle of an assignment. All right. You'll have the same sort of thing with class notes. The class notes, even though under normal circumstances these would be happening in class, I've obviously made videos of them. And so you're just going to keep on going, go to the class notes part of your notes, play the video, and then go ahead and fill those out as well, and do the questions. As far as the WAMAP questions go, the ones you're doing on the computer, for homework, I don't need to necessarily have you turn anything into me, so you don't necessarily need to, you know, obviously you're going to be writing it down for yourself, but you don't need to turn those into me in any way. The exception to that is sometimes I will give you bookwork. So here's an example down here of class notes along with bookwork. So what it says is complete as many of the example problems in the class notes as possible before Monday. Also complete the following book problems. Now, when I give you book problems, I always try to at least give you the answers to go along with them so you know if you're on the right track. But what's going to happen here is after you finish these, you're going to keep these on paper really nice, numbered and everything. And then you're going to click on here. And there is going to be one single question. And that one single question is going to be a place where you can upload the pages of your work for the book work. So you'll just, you know, I just say take pictures of all your pages with your phone, and then click on choose file, and then from your phone just go and grab the image, right? I guess that was something someone in my family wants to buy there, that particular image. But I just double click on that, and there you go, and hit submit. And if you have multiple pages, you just do it on each one. So if you have like an 8-page assignment, just 1 page per, try to keep them in order. That would really help me out a lot. And so that's something I'll ask you to do anytime I'm asking for book work. So those are the main types of assignments: videos that have questions attached and book work. All right, and so they're broken down by chapters here. And again, how do you know what you're supposed to be doing at any given time? You know, because of the schedule. You're just sticking straight to that schedule. Don't deviate from it. If you need help, obviously that's totally okay. But you know, with a particular thing you're struggling with one, you might have to spend longer on it. But always just try to your best to keep up with this schedule. The one thing that I neglected to mention at first is that you do have something called late passes. I give you as many late passes as you want, and that means that if the due date has passed on an assignment, and then you try to click on it, it'll ask you if you want to use a late pass, and if you use one, what it'll do is it'll give you credit for the problems, but I think it gives you half credit for the problem, so you can still earn half the points. So that's just available to you automatically. You don't have to ask me or anything, and that'll be really obvious when a due date passes. You'll see the little icon that allows you to use a late pass. That being said, if you have some reason why you missed a due date, then I want you to talk to me, because I can certainly adjust due dates for individual people that you know, maybe had an important reason why they had to miss some due dates. And so in that case, I wouldn't want to, you know, cause you to have a discount in points. So just please communicate with me, and if anything like that tends to come up. Okay, so now let's get to assessments. So here's what I've done to try to give you a really good idea of what your testing is going to look like. I've actually posted um, some actual tests from my Math 141 class last quarter, and I'll keep these up for a few days so you can kind of poke around in here and kind of get a sense for what this is all about. So I believe it's Friday, I guess it would be the 17th. Friday the 17th is you're gonna have your first test. The way I have it set up is you have to take it on Friday, but there's not a real strict time period on Friday that you have to take it. So you could take it early in the morning, you could take it later in the evening, but you have to take it Friday. When you take a test, there's all sorts of things you got to agree to. And so in particular, you're agreeing I'm not going to get any outside help. You're going to write out your work for each problem, clearly label and circle your answer. Make sure that you have 60 uninterrupted minutes to take the test, right? So this is an important consideration, especially if you have kids or something like that, right? This would be the time to, if you don't have someone else in the house watching your kids at the time you want to take your test, better turn on the electronic babysitter, right? The TV or something like that, right? So you got to have 60 uninterrupted minutes, because once you start it, there's going to be a timer and it's going to tick down. It does ask you for a password. And the only reason there's a password, this real secure one here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is just an extra layer so that I'm not just clicking around on the page and accidentally click on the test. If I do that, it'll start the timer, and then I won't be able to stop it. So you don't want to accidentally click on a test. So that's why there's a password. When you've completed the test, you're going to attach the images for your work below. So you're going to go down here, and it looks just like the bookwork upload that I showed you before. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be very carefully writing all your work out, okay? Write it out really nicely, because remember, this is what I'm going to grade, right? This is a class where you're going to want me to not just pay attention to your final answer, right? You're going to want me to see all of your work, so that I can really decide, are you at the developing level, the proficient, right? Where are you at? So you're going to attach each page of your test, however many there are, to these here. And it's okay if they're just, like JPEG files, just the file type that occurs when you take a picture on your phone. Attach all those. And then what's going to happen is I will get those and grade it and then send it back to you. And then you'll know what your scores were. Now this one here is important. Number 6, you promise not to discuss in any way the contents of the test with any other student until the following day. So even the most innocent thing like, oh boy, number 4, that was really tough, man. I was really hoping he wasn't going to ask one of those. Even just innocent stuff like that, we're not necessarily trying to, to cheat in any way. Just you don't do that at all. If you have acquaintances in the class that you communicate with, so just you're not doing any sort of communication on the test until the next day. After that next day, you can assume everybody's taken it and everything. I really need you as a class to be just really kind of think of this as an act of honor that you can do, because of the fact that I really want to be flexible with you. I understand that it's not possible probably for everyone to take the test at 8:30 because you might have children at home. There's all sorts of considerations. I want to allow flexibility for when you take that test, but then so your side of that is holding up that end of the bargain that says I'm not going to share information in any way whatsoever. All right, so you take that test. I give you back your scores for those 5 different standards. And then let's say you get those back And let's say you're not happy with 2 of them. You're really happy with, let's say you're really happy with standards 1, 2, and 3. They went great. You got an expert level on both of them. But on standards 4 and 5, maybe you got developing, or maybe even got novice on one of them. So you're unhappy with 4 and 5. A week later, and again, there'll be a very specific day for this, I'll make these 5 available. So this is your opportunity to reassess. Now, when you reassess, you do not have to reassess on everything. If you are happy with your scores on standards 1, 2, and 3, leave them alone. Don't do a thing with them. You only have to reassess on things that you choose to. So here's the way this works, okay? In all these reassessments, you can see the reassessment here, but I can't click on it, right? I'm unable to click on that. The only way I will be able to click on it is if I first upload the bookwork that's required of me, right? So remember what that bookwork was, way up at the top here, under bookwork for reassessments. The bookwork is a list of problems from that standard that I need you to do and to check your work on, and then upload to me if you want to reassess. Because the idea is, if you want to try again on a topic, if you didn't get it the first time, then obviously you have some more work to do. So this is the work you need to do, is to do this bookwork. So you pull out your book, or you pull it up on the computer, you do these problems, and notice they're all odds. So you'll be able to check to make sure your answers are correct. So please do that part of it in the back of the book. And then once you complete that, then you go down here and attach it. And again, just however many pages that is, if there's multiple pages, that's great. And then you hit submit. And then once you hit you submit that, then this thing pops right up. So now I can click on it. And once again, this is just like a test. So you're agreeing to the same kind of stuff. You're not going to talk to anybody about it. You're not going to get any outside help. And you're going to click on this and take it. And notice you have shorter amount of time, right? Like 15 uninterrupted minutes, right? So that'll be the timer on that. And just to kind of give you an idea here, for standard 4 so I typed the number 4 in for my password, because that's the password it told me. And it's only got one question, okay? So it's asking me to graph this. And so I do that, and then I take the graph that I have on my paper and then attach it right here, right? So right under the test is where I attach the work for that test, okay? If I get an expert on standard 4, even if I had a 0, a not yet on standard 4 on the first test, my level is now expert. So whatever you get on a reassessment, it completely replaces what you had before, okay? Which is usually a good thing for us, right? Oh, sorry, one last thing, did forget this. When you are doing an assessment, here's the original assessment. I do want you to put your answers in these blanks, okay? So like, for example, they're asking about whether things are functions here. So, I would say yes. Is it a one-to-one function in the upper left corner? Yes, it is. So I'd actually be putting my my answers in here as I go. I'm still writing it all out on my paper. I'm making sure that my answer is very clear on my paper that I'm going to take a picture of, but I'm also going to give answers in these blanks as well. Okay, so don't neglect that part of it. All right. I will put answer keys here under past assessments. Obviously, there's nothing there right now. And then the last thing on the page is supplemental videos. So supplemental videos are there just as extra resources for you. They're not videos that I made, but they're just other videos that kind of go along with this textbook. And so if you want to kind of take a different look at a particular topic and look at it a different way than I did, those are all there, and they're broken down by section. So feel free to utilize those. All right, just a couple other things here. Up on the upper left here, a couple important things. First of all, messages. You can send messages to me, right? You know, asking for help on things, just especially in this first week or so, just asking me questions about how the class works, that sort of thing. This will be probably the fastest way to get a hold of me, is this messaging system. If you see a little red number up here next to the message, that means you have an unread message, and it's most likely from me, so make sure you read it. Oh yeah, and also under the topic of messaging, let's see here. Oh, this one doesn't have it. Most of the questions do have a little link that says message instructor about the question. So a lot of times when you're in the problem itself, there's a little button and it'll automatically send me a message about that question as well. The forums. Now the forums, I'll be honest, I've never used them before on WAMAP, but the forums are things that you can start and then other students can reply to. I would suggest maybe using these. I think actually about half of our class took Math 141 from me last quarter. So there's actually quite a few people here who've experienced my style of grading, who kind of understand the layout pretty well. So what might not be a bad idea is to, if you have some questions, ask them on the forums, and some of your fellow students might see your question even before I do, and you might even get a faster answer on something. So I've never used them before, but just click on new forum, just make a new forum post and go from there, I guess. We'll see how it goes. I've never used it before, so that'll be kind of a learning curve for me. All right, so lastly, the part that you're probably most curious about because of this non-traditional grading is how does this all translate into a letter grade at the end of the quarter? So let me go through here really carefully with you. So here's what a grade book looks like for you. The stuff at the top is just kind of like, homework points and stuff like that, most of which you haven't even encountered yet. So I'm not even going to worry about that stuff. The important stuff starts right here when it says Standard 1. Now, ultimately in the class, you can count on taking an initial assessment, about a week later being given the opportunity to reassess on that standard. And that's all you should really count on, the initial assessment and one reassessment. At the very end of the quarter, and so the way I'd put it is, here's your first try, here's your reassessment, your second try. At the very end of the quarter, I do allow you to pick 5 standards of your choosing that you want to take a third crack at. So you can't count on that for all your standards, but you can do that for 5 of them. And so that's why this blank is here, Standard 1, Assessment 3. And then there's the final exam. And the final exam, I am going to choose the standards, and some of them will appear on the final and some of them won't. If you take the final and a standard does not appear, whatever score you had before, that is your score at the end of the quarter. If it does appear on the final, but it is higher than what you had before, you will get the higher score. If it's on the final and you get lower, then it'll average. And I'm going to show you how that works, okay? All right, so I'm going to just give you some for instances here. So let's say this student here, standard 1, they took the first assessment, got 4 on it, or an expert, and never heard from it again, right? So they never reassessed, of course, and then I did not ask it on the final. Nothing's there. And so their level is 4, okay? Pretty straightforward there. In this example, standard 2, the student got a 2 or a developing on the first one. They did their book work and they reassessed on that topic about a week later. And then they got a 4. So that completely replaced their old one. It did not show up on the final. So they have a 4 for that standard in the class. In this example, they initially had a 2 on their first try, did their book work, took another try, got it up to a 4. Then I asked it on the final also, but they got a 4 again. So of course they still have a 4. Here's an example. Here's a nice positive example. Standard 4 got developing or a 2 on the first try. Tried it again, still got a 2. Tried it a third time at the end of the quarter as one of the ones that you can do a third time. Still had a 2. But then I asked it on the final. The student studied really hard. I did ask it on the final. They got a 4, so they have a 4 in that standard. So despite the fact that they were at the developing level literally for 9 weeks of the quarter, the fact that they ultimately got it on the final means they have a perfect score for that standard. Here's more of a negative example. So the student on their second attempt brought their level up to a 4. I asked them that question on the final and they got a 2. They got worse. So this is the one time I average. So I'm averaging the 2 and the 4, which of course averages to a 3, right? So it averages out to a proficient score. And then one last example. This student took them a while, but they got on their third assessment up to a 4. On their final, they got a 3, right? So not perfect. So how do you average a 4 and a 3, right? Well, 3.5, right? So what does that actually mean? That means when I'm tallying up how many proficients the person got and how many experts the person got, I give them half of a proficient and half of an expert. That's a little strange, but I'm going to do an example that'll help you understand that. So if you go to the very bottom, you can see all of these standards here and where this person stands on each of them here. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tally these things up, and then we're going to compare it to our syllabus and how grades get computed, and we'll see what grade this person got. So I'm just going to tally up how many 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s the person got, and how many 0s they got. All right, so here we go. I'm going to tally up the 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a half, right? So this 3.5 is half of 3 and half of 4. So now I'm at 4.5 4s, 5.5, 6.5, 7.5, 8.5, 9.5, 10.5, 11.5, 12.5, 13.5. All right, so let's count up our 3s. 1.5, right? There's a half of a 3 here, so 1, 1.5. 2.5, that's half of a 3 as well. So I have 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 3s. Let's tally up the 2s. A half of a 2 here, 1.5, 2.5, and that's it. And then I have a single 1. And no zeros. All right, so I've got all these tallied up. So now if I go to the syllabus where the grade book is, this looks a little intimidating at first, but just bear with me. This is how grades are computed, okay? Now let me just say this. I have had very positive reviews by and large about this class and the way that I run it. I think the majority of students prefer it. The grading system is the one thing that is not students' favorite. So let me just tell you, you can talk to me anytime about where your grade is at. I'm happy to have that conversation anytime. Don't hesitate to ask because I know that it is a little bit confusing. All right, so here's the way I read this. If I want to have a B plus or better, I am not allowed to have any novices or any ones. Okay, so remember, an expert is 4, proficient 3, developing 2, novice 1. So I'm not allowed to have any ones. So that this one right here technically takes me out of the running for a B plus, an A minus, and an A. All right, so let's look at what we can have, right? So we can't have anything down here. So now I need to check. Do I have at least 23 proficient, developing, and expert? So in other words, adding these up, how many do I have? So that's going to be 20 and a half, 21, 20. So there's 23 right there. So I have 23 just like I need. Okay, so I'm still in the running for a B. Do I have at least 20 expert and proficient? So these two, well, yeah, that's 20 and a half. I have a little more than I need, right? So that means we're good to go here. And do I have at least 11 Bs or 11 experts, excuse me? Yes, I definitely have at least 11 experts. I've got 13 and a half. So that means I've met all the criteria for getting a B in the class. So that probably helps you a little understand how the letter grading works. On the other hand, it's not, you'll probably have questions on it. So please don't hesitate to ask me kind of about where you stand at any given time. I understand that that's important to you. It's important to me too. But I think overall, the way that I grade in this course is quite helpful. And so I think it outweighs kind of the annoyance of maybe not feeling like you know exactly where you are at any given time. But I'm happy to have that conversation whenever you need it. All right, so thank you for enduring that long video, but I think you can see why it kind of takes a while to explain this class. You're gonna have questions over the next week. Those are questions that I am more than happy to answer for you. So I hope that I see you on Monday at 8:30. If something happens and you don't get the email that gave you all this information before Monday, that's okay. We'll just get together on the Tuesday session or the Wednesday session to kind of touch base and make sure you feel comfortable with how to get assistance. But let's make sure in these first few days we make contact in that Zoom meeting, and then after that you can kind of use the Zoom meeting as needed. All right, thank you, and I look forward to meeting you all.